Welcome to the Prevail Over Cancer Podcast, where we take a metabolic approach to help guide you on preventing, prevailing, and striving over cancer.
We are live. We are live on the Prevail Over Cancer Podcast. I'm Jeff Lopes, my incredible co-host Keith Bishop. How are you, buddy?
Doing great, and you?
I'm doing amazing, buddy. This week is a topic that Keith actually talks about a ton of on social media because of the benefits, and there's so much variety to it. And it's legumes and beans. And we're going to go through different options of them, different ways to cook them, the benefits, what they do to your body, and how they can help you prevent cancer. So right off the bat, what are your favorite beans, and which ones do you actually consume on a regular basis? And then let's start talking about the benefit and how the connection between cancer prevention. There's so many different things. I was talking to you before we got on, and I think this information will be very valid for people, especially people who are on a Mediterranean diet or that don't even eat beans, that could actually add them into their diet that could help the prevention or prevailing over cancer. So what's your favorite? What's your go-to for beans?
Oh, wow. Well, actually, we're big on Tex-Mex here. And so Mexican food. So, yeah. And so that's going to be, actually black beans are kind of like my favorite. So typically I think, vegetables and fruit and beans, typically the darker the color, the more antioxidants that repair our body. Yeah. And so, for example, you can cut say a root vegetable, you can cut a white potato in half and set it aside. And what happens in a few minutes? It starts turning brown because there are not very many antioxidants in it. You can take a sweet potato, cut that in half, it won't turn brown for days because it's got a lot more antioxidants in it. So therefore, I'm kind of I lean toward darker beans and lentils, legumes, but I love the variety too. I don't eat the same thing every day. And I think variety is important, and we should not be doing that because you'll run into some nutrient deficiencies because there's not a perfect food out there. So anyway, I love black beans. I have a tendency to kind of gravitate toward that, and then kidney beans, matter of fact, chili. In the wintertime, I love chili, and it will make a meat free or a meat chili. But always kidney beans, and we'll put all kinds of things in there. I love old fashioned pinto beans, and fixing up.
Let's talk about those two you just said right there, because I was just reading an article before we went on. I was just researching a little, and I saw an article of which beans have the best antioxidants, and at the end of the day, that's a big part of cancer survival. And it says pinto beans and red kidney beans were the highest of the bean family in antioxidants, which I think you just named those two, which are incredible. And I've never, and to be honest, I don't even know if I've ever had pinto beans because I don't even know what they look like or what they. So I'm trying to figure out, because I've had mixed beans, lots of mixed beans. So I wonder if I've had pinto beans in there. I'm going to research that after. But red kidney beans, same as you, black beans are a huge favor. I do like my chickpeas because they do have a higher source of protein. So I like my chickpeas. But red beans, those are my go-tos. The exact same thing. The darker ones, I like to mix and match them and stuff like that, just have some variety. But pinto beans and red kidney beans are, when I was researching, seem the ones that have the highest antioxidants of the bean legume family kind of.
Right. So traditionally, we think of, matter of fact, typically Mexican food, refried beans are actually pinto beans. And they mash those pinto beans up and add a little oil to it. My favorite restaurants will do that. And I mean, literally, you can see the pinto beans in it. It's not just slop, but it's you can see it in there. You can, a little consistency to it and things like that. But that's kind of a common Mexican side dish. I prefer actually going with more like the steamed beans, or we call them borracho beans. I'll add peppers and onions and all kinds of things to that, and as a side of part of a Mexican or Tex-Mex dinner. And it's actually a very common staple in many countries, eating beans, and legumes on a regular basis. And so, I think that's one thing that and that's why I promote it so much. My cancer keto guide is is definitely more of a Mediterranean type of a program, which I love. Matter of fact, Mediterranean is, it's definitely some fish and some beans, a little bit of red meat, and some eggs, so it's a wide range of foods, and consistently that type of a program is reduces the risk of cancers. Okay, the Mediterranean type diet. My cancer keto is actually more trying to be a little bit more careful about the breads and carbohydrates and starches and sugars and things like that. So, but I'm a big fan of beans. I eat beans almost every single day as one of my protein sources every day.
Interesting. My wife keeps pushing me to have more beans, we have it usually 3 to 4 times a week, but she's constantly pushing to have more beans. She's a big bean fan, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
When you're looking at beans, there's other aspects besides the antioxidants and anti-inflammatories and all that stuff like that, but there's also the fiber intake.
Yes.
Which, as a colorectal cancer survivor, fiber is a big part also of my diet. And you're not going to, you can look at most foods, beans are probably one of the highest sources in fiber. So let's talk about that a bit.
Yeah. So the fiber is so important. That fiber bulks up the stool and even kind of think of it almost like kind of like a brush. And it helps us scrape out stuff, inside the intestines. But also that fiber helps the good bacteria to grow.
Yeah.
There is a group of bacterias. It's a learning, thing right now, but there's a group of bacterias that, if high, increase the risk of colon cancer. Well, the eating more fibrous foods helps the good bacteria to grow and crowds out the bad bacteria. Another very important thing is also that fiber traps excess toxic chemicals and keeps us from reabsorbing excess hormones and other chemicals that are in our environment that we're eating and that we're exposed to. That's we're going to either poop or urinate toxins out.
Yeah.
And so we want both of those systems working, and therefore beans are the perfect thing for that, especially for hormone related cancer and colorectal cancers. We got to get that good bacteria. Most of our immune system comes from the gut, the intestines.
I mean, there's so many studies now, and sorry to interrupt you. I mean, there's so many studies right now, and the more you read and the more you try to understand and learn how important gut health is. I know we're going off topic with that, but it seems like everything some way or another relates to and begins in your gut when it comes to inflammation, infections, or anything in your body, right?
Exactly. And it goes everything from here down. And so any type of inflammation or problem is going to increase the risk of cancers. And so inflammation, so everything from a pocket back here in the gums to anything else going on in the whole digestive tract is a problem, and therefore it needs to be taken care of. Now, beans aren't always the end all, but they're important. So therefore we do have to have those assessments from practitioners to help figure that out. And so, and then maybe even the way your wife is helping you gradually, increase those beans may be a great way to do that too, because, if you just switch all of a sudden and start eating beans, the most common thing people complain about is excess gas.
Yeah.
Because it's a change. So no matter, if any of us, if we go to a different region of our country or to another part of the world, we're going to have digestive issues for a while, until our digestive tract and gut gets used to that new bacteria exposure and foods and fiber and oils and things like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that excess gas, is that more of a contribution of the increase in protein and fiber, or is that other aspects of the beans and legumes?
It's actually it has to do with how well we digest it, but actually the bacteria digest the carbohydrates in the beans.
Okay.
And if we have kind of like an imbalance of that bacteria, we can definitely get excess gas. And so there are supplements that can help out. But used to, when I would have beans, once a week, and there was a time that was like maybe not even once a week, but I'd have beans, whether it be chili or pinto beans. Oh man, gas was horrible because my digestive system was not used to it.
Yeah.
And, but now that I eat it every single day, I don't even, I don't notice it. Matter of fact, nobody's complained about it either. But anyway, nobody's complaining about it, but I don't notice it. And I pay attention to those kind of things because that is a core thing of some of the things I did in my practice is digestive health. If there's if a person comes to me for whatever health issue, whether it be brain, we were talking about that earlier before we started the show, brain health to cancer or a splinter in their toe, if they have a gut issue, we're going to be working on that and start making changes, assessing and making changes on that.
There's a few things that come up words when you Google the consumption of beans and your consumption of legumes and stuff like that is flavonoids. Explain what that is.
Yes. So flavonoids are antioxidants.
Yeah.
So part of it is that dark color.
Yeah.
And sometimes those dark colors, some of those best dark colors are actually sometimes the skin on the beans, the skin on the nuts and seeds, fruits and vegetables. So an apple is, a lot of those flavonoids are in that green or red skin of the apple. And so peeling or washing and doing away with those skins, you're losing a lot of phenols, polyphenols, flavonoids. Those are actually chemicals that repair our body.
Yeah.
And they repair the DNA in our cells. And so that keeps that cell from kind of going weird and rogue and turning into more of a cancerous type thing. That's the whole purpose of the flavonoids, polyphenols, and antioxidants.
Yeah, it's funny you're saying that because that's one of the next subjects I wanted to talk about. When I did my research, we both, I guess, our ingredients, black beans are one of our favorite, and I do enjoy black beans. And we're going to talk about different methods of cooking them after. But I was reading that black beans have the highest amount of folate, which is exactly what you just said, helps in the repair of DNA and stuff like that, which is incredibly important for cancer because your body, these cells go rogue. You want your body to be able to fight that and repair those on its own. So to avoid the chances of getting cancer prevention, right? So black beans, when I read, were the highest in that amount of the folate. Is there anything else with folate? I guess that's part of the family as you were talking about.
Yes. Well, yeah. Folate is a chemical that helps repair the DNA in our cells. It also helps with organs just to work better, including detoxification and brain function, neurotransmitters. I mean, there's actually hundreds, maybe thousands of functions of folate. So now folate is different than folic acid.
Yeah.
So they actually add folic acid to some foods to fortify it to make it better because like breads and cereals, they actually add folic acid, which is synthetic, into that to try to make the food better. And so they'll use studies showing that, well, okay, if we bump up folic acid levels in our foods and or supplements, it reduces the risk of birth defects. So in children, and so the central the embryo closes up in the midline, and if there's not enough folate available, increased risk of cleft palate and spinal bifida, where the spinal column doesn't close up. So that's the purpose of folate, as far as in foods. But then the synthetic folic acids, like in supplements, actually might increase the risk of some cancers. And so not the food, okay, but if it's folic acid, that's a problem. Folate or most higher quality supplements that have what are called methylfolate. And that's actually what our body needs. So folic acid has to be changed into methylfolate to do the proper job. Synthetic folic acid, genetically, some of us and myself, actually, I have a difficult time genetically converting that folic acid into methylfolate. So if I take, for many years, most of my life, I took a multiple vitamin with folic acid in it, that actually increases my risk of cancer.
There's been a lot of controversy on this lately. And it's funny you're saying that because I've probably heard maybe 3-4 podcasts in the last 6 months on folic acid and how, I mean, for years, you get pregnant, your doctor recommends you to take folic acid. And now there's a big turnaround saying, hey, we shouldn't be giving this to pregnant women. So it's just that big controversy. Actually, I've been reading actually and listening to quite a bit of controversy with that. So it's interesting you're saying that the whole supplement with folic acid, it's you want to be able to get this naturally out of your food. You want to avoid that as a supplement because and just like you said, a lot of cereal companies, a lot of stuff like that are adding it in, and it's not really doing anything beneficial to you.
Yeah, not that much. It's actually becomes more of a growth chemical. And so that's the purpose of the folic acid, is to help that baby's body to close properly. And so it is more of a growth chemical. And at certain times in our life, we don't need that type of a growth chemical. But okay, it's very important. Methylfolate, is okay as far as a supplement. Okay.
Yes.
It's folic acid that might be concerns. And also there's just genetics involved in that too. So it's not like everybody's gonna have a problem, but if you have cancer and you're taking a supplement with folic acid, part of my view is we got to change that environment. If you were taking that and you got cancer, we stop that folic acid because that is a growth chemical. And we don't want to keep repairing the DNA of the bad cells.
No.
Right. So we want that DNA to be damaged. So, it is controversial. And part of the problem is that everybody's different. There's genetics involved, and that's a simple test. It's called MTHFR test. And so,
is that a DNA test?
It's a DNA test.
Yeah.
And so in the United States, it's less than $100. And matter of fact, it's actually part of most genetic tests anyway. So we do one by 3X4 genetics.
Yeah.
There's many different ones available, and they test for like almost 100 different DNA tests, and it's like $300.
Yeah.
All of those. And so, and it's good information to know. So with that, that, folic acid is not for me. I need to go with methylfolate, and I need to monitor my homocysteine blood test. It gets a little bit complicated, but to know if I'm getting enough or not of that methylfolate.
You have so much information that sometimes I get scared to ask you a question because it's like going to be like overflow. So
I know your eyes are going. Oh.
It's incredible. It's incredible, and it allows people to take part of what you're saying and do their own research and do their own stuff like that. Because I think it's important for people to understand that we're trying to provide you as much information we can to help you prevent, prevail, and eliminate any opportunity of getting cancer, but you still have to do your own research. You still have to figure out what's right and wrong for you, right? And that's why people like Keith are incredible, that you could reach out to him after the show and work with Keith, and he could potentially help you drastically, but that has to be exactly programmed for you and your genetics and your body and what you're going through. So we're trying to provide as much information you can to help make day-to-day choices a lot smarter and more beneficial for you. One study 100%.
Question. Okay. Yes. So in Canada, whenever you think of baked beans, what are those like? What is in a can of baked beans?
I mean, baked beans is, we're big campers and outdoors in Canada. So baked beans growing up to what I have now is different. Now, I think of baked beans now totally different because the way I cook them because of cancer. But baked beans growing up, it was just canned, smoky tomato sauce kind of thing and it was just, dude, it would be canned beans. And you actually, now that I go back and look at them, they were probably as unhealthy as you probably could because they had a ton of sugar, a ton of just different stuff in it. But they're pre-canned in a kind of a smoky tomato sauce. That's what I think of baked beans here.
And so same thing here in the United States, but in Europe it's different.
Interesting.
And so in Europe, baked beans, they even spill it just a little bit different, but it actually is beans and tomatoes. There's no sugar.
But that's what I do now.
And that is fine. That is perfect.
Yeah.
The baked beans in North America are like, matter of fact, there's actually some studies showing that they increase the risk of cancer.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it, because it's essentially it's a ton of cheap barbecue sauce in beans. Exactly. That's what it is.
Sugar in there, and that's one of the main ingredients. And some of the cans I've seen, there's 2 different sugars in it. Even just they add. So that is a concern. So there's certain types. There's one other bean that I do like, but I just don't eat a whole lot of them because they're a little bit more starchy, and that's what we call black-eyed peas.
Yeah, black eyed peas. Yeah, I've had those before. I mean, I have those in our mixes. We do a little mix sometimes, where we'll either pre-buy an organic premix, which has black eyed peas, red beans, black beans, some chickpea mixture, which I like changing up every once in a while. We use those for actually cold salads.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I love beans for cold salad. My summertime favorite on that. So, but then the black eyed peas seems to be just have a little bit more carbohydrates and not quite as much protein in it.
Yeah.
So that's one I actually don't eat on a regular basis.
Okay. Very good. So let's talk. I want to talk about one quick study that came just because of my history with the colorectal cancer. There was a study I was just bringing it here down 1997. There was a study on laboratory rats and red kidney beans, and when they put these red kidney beans in the rats' diet, they saw a reduction of almost 52% of tumor growth, which is massive. So, and I was reading, there's probably about 4 or 5 studies I found pretty rapidly how red beans and black beans, the tumor reduction or the elimination of tumor growth by like 50 to 60%, which is, I mean, those are astonishing numbers. And even though it's elaborate, those are astonishing numbers.
Yeah, exactly. And so human studies are, kind of following that pattern too. It just takes time. And the problem is that trying to get, a population group to, they aren't doing it like, okay, you've got to eat beans every single day. So I don't know of any studies doing that. So basically human studies are more like, okay, so these people got cancer and this is what they ate. This is their lifestyle. And then they use statistics and all kinds of accepted models to try to take away the smoking and the bad lifestyle issues. And then the people that didn't get cancer and typically, people that eat more beans have a reduced risk of cancer. Yeah. And that even goes into Europe or the blue zones that everybody talks about. It's, they're eating definitely local foods, but a lot of times there's legumes in there.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very good. Now, when I was back in pharmacy school back in the 70s, we were told that in our little 3-hour class of nutrition, wasn't even 3 hours of nutrition, but anyway, little tiny nutrition class. Yeah. When you have beans, you need to have rice with that because beans are lacking an amino acid. And so it's not a complete protein. Well, I'm not sure that's a full story, and we have to be careful about the rice. And so I don't eat much rice. That's just too many carbohydrates and too many sugars. And there's definitely some studies, in Caucasians in North America that eat starchy foods like rice have a greater risk of cancers. So therefore, I don't do that, but I do eat beans and always have other vegetables, and oils and things like that in my beans all the time.
Let's end the podcast with a couple different methods of cooking them, so people have different options. I'll go through what I do, then you could go through what you and your family does. But when you're talking about baked beans, we actually go to Costco. You can buy an organic tomato sauce, and it's literally like 3 ingredients in it. And I literally just put a half a bottle of the tomato sauce, put my beans in there, and let it stew and simmer for 15-20 minutes. Add a little parsley, add some stuff, and that's like a little side dish. We actually all have that with a salad or with some vegetables or something like that, some whatever you want to have on the side, some green beans. But I'll make that as my main source of protein in that meal. We do the oven as well, the baked, where we'll put mixture of beans and we'll add different types of either olive oils, not olive oils, avocado oil, and we'll add some spices and stuff and make it a little more spicy and put that in the oven. And then as we talked about, cold salads, which we'll get a mixture of beans, some olive oils, a little sea salt, a little black pepper, and just mix it up. If you want to add a little spice to it or something, just mix it up, and we'll use that as a cold salad on a summer day as a side dish or something like that. So those are three different little ideas, but there's so many ways you could use it, incorporate it. Even my wife has made before peppers, where she'll stuff them with cheese and beans. She'll cheese, beans, and tomato sauce, and she'll cut the peppers in half, clean them out, stuff them up, and put them in the oven. So it's a great little dish as well. And it's actually very flavorful. The peppers like melt in your mouth because they get really soft and tender. And you just cut them up and you're eating them with the beans. So you're getting a great sort of protein. You're getting your tons of vitamins, antioxidants, stuff like that with the green peppers and red peppers. So those are four little ways that we do them, but they are something that, I mean, like I said, 4 times a week, 5 times a week, we're doing them. I am going to start trying to increase, because my wife is trying to get us once a day, at least having some source of beans or legumes or something like that. But it's so important to add this to your diet, especially if you're following a keto or Mediterranean diet. It should be a huge part of it, because like you said, the blue zones, Europe, it's a huge part of their diet, part of their lifestyle. And these people, if you look at rates, they have lower cancer rates, and they seem to live a lot longer than we do in North America, right? So what do you do?
Yes.
So what are options that you do?
About that on rates.
So what are some of the options you do?
The best way to do it, and that includes, with even a canned bean, is an option. It's probably not the best option because of the plastic liner that's in the beans.
Yeah.
And so even I do that. I go BPA free liner, and organic as much as possible. And if finances don't allow it, that's I consider it to be kind of like a minor thing. But I try to do organic as much as possible. And so, I like to rinse the beans, if they're in a can, rinse those out. And then, you can bake them then or heat them up. Just heat them very quickly, because they're already pre-cooked. And then you can add things to it. So it's really convenient to add salads. And then, but the best way is actually buying dried beans or lentils. We didn't talk about lentils, but same type of thing.
Same thing. Yeah.
Lentils, same kind of a thing. And then, but actually, steaming them or boiling are going to be some of your better options. But also we don't want to necessarily throw away the bathwater. We want to actually use some of that liquid too. So steaming would be a better, maybe the best way to keep from losing those nutrients into the water. And so you can use a steaming biscuit, and we use a pressure cooker because, and a more recent one is called an Instapot. It cooks stuff so quick. Yeah. And so my wife can cook some beans. Literally, I'll let her know that I'm leaving the office, and it's like a 35-minute drive. And within 30 minutes, she's got dinner ready and beans in the pressure cooker. And so it pressures up quickly, it cooks quickly, and it's a healthy way to do it. So I mean, those are great ways and to do it. If at all possible, probably the best way is actually dried beans and lentils that are organic, and then cooking those on your own if you can. That is going to be more expensive than going with maybe some canned beans, which are very inexpensive. So you can literally have a meal for like $1.50. Yeah, with some beans and a vegetable with that, and a little bit. And I add oils often. Add oils to the beans, or fats of some way, because that just makes it a more complete meal. Yeah, and it slows down the carbohydrate absorption of the carbs, that are in that. Between the fiber and fat and the protein, most beans don't really spike your blood glucose bad.
Yeah, we've done that too. Sorry, we've done that too. Where you get it. Sorry.
As long as you don't go overboard in the quantity.
Yeah, of course. We've actually got an avocado, when you mash it up and you make it part of the sauce, especially on a cold salad. You'll mix it in with the olive oil and the spices, and you'll make it kind of a creamy dressing. So that's a great way to add fat. Also, I totally forgot, is my wife makes quite often is soup with it. She'll make legumes. She'll make Lenten beans. She'll make soups with it. And they're great, and the broth, and just add a little broth to it, and she'll make a soup. And it's on an evening day, you want to have a quick little meal. A nice little cup of soup is incredible too, right? Tons of vitamins in there.
Yeah, and that's once again saving that bath, in a way, that with that water, that soup, and heating them up and putting the vegetables and all kinds of things in there. I mean, that soups are a great way to get the beans in. Variety is important. Quantity is going to be the biggest concern, because I can eat a lot more beans than I need. Okay.
Yeah.
So and or chili and things like that. So I'm trying to be very careful and following what I call the palm rule. So it's like 3 pounds of food, is really all we need for a meal.
Yeah.
Anything above that is going to be some type of a problem.
Yeah, I agree. This has been awesome, buddy. Tons of information, like always. I appreciate you. And this was episode number 13. It'll be out, and I'm excited for it to be released. And like always, you're awesome. Your information is awesome. Anybody that needs help, that needs some guidance, Keith is a bundle of knowledge, and he can do wonders for you. So reach out to Keith. And I appreciate you, buddy. Till next week. Till next week, buddy.